Now, the other day I did a video kind of going over the record system for the USPA and the IPL, and while I was digging through the records, I noticed that one of the reasons I might be ranked kind of high for over 40 is that there's just not that many of us competing. There was less than a couple hundred currently active worldwide, guys over the age of 45, and that number drops drastically as you get to your 50s and 60s. There are a couple guys that are competing into their 80s, but I mean, you could probably count them on one hand. I wanted to make a video about longevity, kind of going over some of the things that I do at the age of 47 to maintain my flexibility and stay injury free. I mean, there's a reason why I'm the better part of 50 years old and I have never had a major injury, even though I've been consistently lifting heavy for nearly a decade now. So I thought it'd be good to spend a little time on that. And I noticed, like, whenever I post a video, if it's something cool like squatting 500 pounds, I'll get a subscriber. And if I post something like my stretching routine, somebody will unsubscribe to my channel. So this is probably going to drop a few viewers, but I think it's important information. So here we go. Let's talk shoulder pain while you're benching. This can affect anybody of all ages. If you're doing the flat bench on a consistent basis, maybe you're overtraining, doing a high volume, constant heavy lifting, it can be common to get pain in your shoulders and your biceps. And if you look at the anatomy of the bicep, you'll see that it's got a tendon that connects to your elbow joint, and there's most people, there's two connections underneath the shoulders, which can manifest itself as pain underneath the shoulders. And if you're fairly muscular, it's hard to massage that tendon. So one of the things that I do to counteract that tendonitis, which I do get from time to time, especially when I'm training for competition, is really stretching the bicep muscle out, the entire thing. So a lot of what I'm doing here, even though it appears like I'm practicing trying to do a snatch, as you can see, I'm using a 20-pound barbell with some really light weights, and I am actually focused more on the technique of the lift and the stretching, the ability to get myself into that position. And so I spend a lot of time just stretching the biceps out. And that helps to alleviate that tendonitis that you can get from benching a lot. And most people don't associate the biceps with the bench. It's not a prime mover, obviously, but it is a stability muscle. So when you, especially when you're doing a lot of like heavy dumbbells or heavy barbell work, you're using that muscle to stabilize it. And if you're doing an excessive amount of one but none of the other, that small delicate muscle is under a lot of constant stress, and it's not stretching out properly. It's not getting proper blood flow. So just by taking 5 minutes every day to just stretch that out, that's going to save you from a lot of pain and heartache down the road if you do compete, if you do bench a lot. So I would recommend definitely incorporating bicep tendon stretching into your routine. So you notice those little elevated platforms that I'm standing on? Those are oil change ramps. Now, what this can help with is a lot of guys my age have a problem with knee mobilities as it relates to Olympic lifting. There's a lot of guys that can get into a parallel squat position, but they can't go much farther than that. Some of them can't even get in that position. So I spend a good 10-15 minutes a day just trying to squat in an upright position, more like an Olympic lift stack. And these little ramps, they help alleviate some of the pain that comes with a lack of ankle mobility. And I will generally use these to make it easier for me to get my knees over my toes. So I'm trying to go way past a normal parallel squat position, and I'm actually trying to get my ankles to touch my glutes, and I want to stack up in that position, and that just helps with that. Think of it as like it's sort of doing the same thing a squat shoe would do. Shoes are not as they're not as elevated. If you do it barefoot and you sit in that position, you'll notice that there's a tendency to come up on the balls of your feet a little bit, and that's where that elevated platform of a squat shoe helps to sit you in that position in a stable manner. But that's something that I think everybody should work on, is the ability to get into this position, and that's why I do these on a daily basis. I am trying to learn how to do some Olympic lifting, but what I'm doing here is more for the purpose of mobility training than it is for anything else. Like, as you can see, when I'm putting the bar over my head, I'm using the bar to stretch my arms out, and I'm trying to straighten my back with my arms all the way stretched, and I'm trying to get my knees far over my toes, and I'm just constantly working that mobility. As you can see, you can also use these to help you train to do one-legged lifts. Why do pistol squats? Besides trying to show off online. They're kind of hard to do. They require a great deal of coordination and balance. Well, it's specifically for that reason, because they are so difficult to do, that I want to train myself to have that balance and that coordination. And I spend a couple minutes every day just doing variations of body weight exercises that are difficult to do. One-arm push-ups, pistol squats. I'll do offset pull-ups where I'll hold one arm with a wide group and one arm directly above me, which helps distribute the weight unevenly in your body, and it makes, it'll get you closer to being able to do a one-arm pull-up. Just little things like that, and it's simply for quality of life. That's it. Like, it doesn't do anything for powerlifting. Like, if you could do all the pistol squats in the world, and it's not gonna help you to squat 600 pounds, but it will keep your joints healthy. It'll help you with your ability to do day-to-day stuff like chores around the house. Like, you're working in the garage and you're fixing the car, you can, instead of having to be on your knees, you can be in the seated squat position, and you can do your whatever assembly right there on the floor in a comfortable position. And it's just something that guys my age lose, and once it's gone, it's really hard to get back. So 5-10 minutes a day, man, it will just make everything in your life easier. I've had complete ACL reconstruction. I practically had my whole right knee rebuilt, and I've had some damage to the left knee as a result of favoring it. So this next group of exercises, this is something I do every day. It looks really simple, where I'm just putting my feet behind me and leaning back on my knees, and the goal is to try to get back a little bit farther every time you do these, and this will just helps the knees. I mean, if you're one of those guys that suffers from knee pain when you're trying to sit in the squat position, this exercise will cure that. It's a lot harder to do than it looks. I also spent a lot of time just practicing getting up off the floor from on my knees without using my hands or any assistance. And for some people, that's like a huge goal, just to be able to get up off the floor. I mean, there's some people that can't bend over to tie their shoes. And little things like this, even if you only just did them a couple minutes every morning when you woke up or before you went to bed, it will improve the quality of your life drastically. I promise you, this is something you don't want to lose the ability to do. Ankle mobility is something that I really strive to maintain. I spend most of my day with work boots on, walking around a job site. Sometimes I walk 10 miles a day up and down stairs, uneven terrain, rocks, dirt, mud, sliding all over the place. Your knees take a beating, especially when you get to my age. I come home, sometimes my knees will be swollen and just everything hurts. And this specifically helps with, just keep you light on your feet and able to just, get into those positions to begin with. If you have stiff ankles and you can't move them very well, you're going to be really limited as to what you're going to be able to do with a squat. It's just little things like this really help. As for how to do these exercises, a lot of what I do is I'll get into a position and I'll feel where I'm having tightness or pain. Maybe, you want to distinguish between soreness and tightness and actual damage, because you don't want to, continue to injure yourself. But I'll feel where I'm losing mobility, and then I'll focus on movement in that specific position. So I can't tell you, get up on the balls of your feet and press from a seated squat position 20 times, and that'll help with your Achilles tendon, because maybe that's not the problem for you. Maybe it's just being able to bend your knee or flex your knee all the way in either direction. And if that's the case, you can't even get into this position to begin with. So it's going to be a little different for whatever your needs are. But the point is if you don't have mobility, it's important to work into that. Get as far as you can go, and then slowly force yourself a little bit deeper into the position and hold it for 30 seconds. That's how my general rule of thumb is. Wherever my mobility stops, I try to work myself past that point and hold it for 15 to 30 seconds for sets of however many. And I treat it just like any other exercise as far as linear progression goes. A lot of what we do in powerlifting requires you to open your hips up. I don't know if you ever heard Ed Cohen say, open your taint when you're doing sumo deadlifts. But essentially, you got to be able to open your hips up, and your knees have to be able to track with your toes so that your knees don't cave in while you're pressing. Well, one of the useful tools that I have in my toolbox is my straps. And what I'll do is I'll strap them around my knees, and I'll use the resistance of the straps to open my hips up. And then I will perform dynamic stretching using some kind of weight. Here I'm using a kettlebell with 100 pounds on it. And I'm gonna get to as far as I can stretch, just past comfortable. So I'm actually trying to stretch it out a little bit more than I'm normally capable of. And then I'll use the resistance of the bands to hold me in that position. And I'll work on being able to get deeper into that position than I normally could when I'm standing on the platform with just a barbell. So this is more like an assistance tool, and you can actually perform your deadlifts doing this. It does make the degree of difficulty a lot more, but I know some people that use straps like this, and they can go in and do more using the straps than they can without them, because it helps keep them upright and it sits them in the proper position. But no, obviously you can't do that legally in competition. But this exercise, what's cool about this is it also feels really good. The straps actually help you get into that position without you having to hold it yourself. And that allows you to focus on the lifting and release the tension, which alleviates some of the pain that's associated with it. So it actually feels really good. You get an awesome hamstring stretch, and it opens up your groin, and all that tightness is released. Helps you breathe better. It's just I like doing these. These are good. The main takeaway here is use it or lose it. I'm the better part of 50 years old. I've had my knee rebuilt. I've had both knees injured. I've had back surgeries. I've had injuries. I've had some injuries. I've never been hurt weightlifting though. Other than, I've pulled muscles. I've had some minor sprains, but I've never had any significant injury that prevented me from competing for any period of time. And I think part of that is maybe I've gotten lucky, but another part of that is that I take the time and I do the little things that I believe are necessary to keep the big things in line and healthy. I focus a lot on form, and I'm always trying to constantly improve that, and I spend a lot of time stretching and working out those little support muscles that are usually or typically neglected by most lifters. What do we see in powerlifting? Pec tears, biceps from deadlifting, knees blown out. Usually those are rap squatters, back injuries from deadlifting. A lot of it is from ego lifting, bad form, and a lot of it is just repetitive motion injuries, tendons getting too tight, and then rupturing or tearing, pulling muscles, not having flexibility. All of those injuries, the body will tell you when something's going wrong, and if you take the time and you address it before it becomes a crippling injury, you're going to be able to keep competing for a long time. And you could get hurt at any minute. Things happen, accidents happen, but if you take the time and do the little things, it greatly increases your chances of being competitive for a really long time without having to suffer major injuries. I've heard a lot of lifters say it's not a matter of if you're going to get hurt, it's a matter of when. And I don't subscribe to that. That's like saying, if you buy a motorcycle, you're going to lay it down at some point. You're going to crash. Every bike rider crashes. I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But you know what? I don't think that having to live through major injuries is a prerequisite to competing. I really don't. I think if you listen to your body, you stop when things are hurt, and you do the small physical therapy stuff that most people neglect to stay healthy, you can do this for a very long time. And you can do it competitively, and you can do it injury-free. And I like to think that I'm evidence, maybe not living proof. I haven't been lifting my entire life. But I go pretty heavy, and I go heavy frequently. If anybody would be a prime candidate for an injury, it would be me. And I just do the small things, and I'm still going. So your mission for today is to go and spend 10 minutes stretching. See how you feel afterwards.